have a theoretical perspective or series of perspectives that you use to enable students to better learn their course materials?
Yes, I emphasize theory, but there are varying theoretical perspectives in that I consider theory first a necessary approach to asking questions because it gives us a framework. Because we could, if we would just begin asking questions, we would fall into a morass of information, which is what we're trying to extricate ourselves from. We're trying to learn how to manage this wealth of information. So a theory gives us frameworks for asking questions. So I could, when I mentioned earlier that we could imagine how a woman would walk in the streets of an ancient city and how she may interpret different forms of art. Well, that introduces us to theory in that we can think in terms of questions that pertain to gender. And we could use theory that's applied to gender. We could think in terms of cultural power. What is valued? Why is it valued? Who values it? And what happens if you don't value it? That's another aspect of theory. And there are formal names to all of this theory. But in the introductory class, I don't introduce the formal names in most cases, but I introduce the concepts so that we just begin to ask questions about the past through different theoretical frameworks. To talk about town development or the emergence of towns, I'm going to introduce you to a theoretical lens or a framework through which you can think about what it means to walk the spaces of a town. A theoretical framework gives you a language as well for analyzing and talking about your experiences. And it gives you a framework for thinking about social and cultural interaction. How do you relate to others? How do others relate to you? And then putting in the larger global scheme, how do we as a nation relate to others, and so on. So it'll give you a frame. Spatial theory is concerned with how people form spaces and how they use those spaces to give them meanings. By meanings, I will suggest that we will think about social custom, social norms that you compare yourself with, like a social norm of body type, for example, today. Social status. Political authority, such as you are studying about in Rome, although there are different types of political authority everywhere. Cultural authority, in other words, what beliefs are held more strongly than others, and if you don't hold that belief, what is the consequence? Gender relations, attitudes about others, and on.